Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game Six Clay podcast. It's your boy Gautam with my boys Matt and Chuck. Gentlemen, welcome back. Happy All-Star break. How we doing, man? How we doing?
Doing solid, man. Once again,
Hey,
I'm
take your
glad we're
time.
getting
Take your
back on
time.
a
Either one of you. Take your time.
regular. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. Yeah, glad we're back on a schedule, man. This is nice. It's nice to get a. We're gonna have a fun podcast today. I'm stoked for it. No complaints, man. I wish we had some good conversations before the podcast about starting an OnlyFans for our Game Six Play feet. And these guys thought I wasn't gonna bring it up, but the feet. If we all had the feet, we all agreed the
Hey,
money
man,
would be there for all of us.
it's a
Unfortunately,
recession
it's
right
not
here,
there.
so we get paid however it takes.
Hey,
Shout out Anchor as well. Chuck, how you doing, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm thinking a lot more about how my feet might potentially look now. Gotta do a
Yeah, hit
little inventory down there.
little
See how
pedicure,
things are shaping
pedicure
up.
action. Get it going. You guys got time, man. It is the All-Star break. We got 9 days, 10 days, or whatever it is, till the next Warriors game. Sitting squarely at 29 and 29, man. Just a mid-team, sitting there 500. I think they're 14th in offense, 15th in defense, or something like that. So just completely middle of the pack. But yeah, this episode we got time. It's a little break, so we're gonna switch things up a little bit. I want to get into the buyout market first, but we got a fun one for you guys today. We're gonna be grading all the players. Some mid team, 500 basketball, a lot of injuries, a lot of people in and out of the lineup, some trades, some new familiar faces back. So we got a fun one lined up where we're gonna go through all our grades for the guys currently on the Warriors. But before we get into that, want to start the buyout market. Big hot topic today was Kevin Love got bought out by the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that was one name that I know before even all the buyout happened was a guy that we talked about before on this podcast. Just as a guy that we think could fit. Obviously is a little contentious as anything is nowadays with Warriors fans and Twitter or whatever. But just want to get you guys' takes before we jump into it, man. What do you guys think about Kevin Love being that hopefully that spark that this team needs going into the second half or second part of the
Yeah,
season?
so I outlined all that in my article on theswitchtheory.com. Had
Love that
that
shit.
up about a week ago. Seamless plug, nothing of it. But uh so the main thing for me, well, three main things I guess you could say. Uh One, the rebounding is huge. The guy is still as elite as they come on a permanent basis, especially in the defensive end of the floor. Offensively, it's not as much there for rebounding, but that's mostly because he's like exclusively a stretch big at this point in his career. He's not the sort of interior bruiser, mid-range maestro that we saw in Minnesota and in Cleveland. But on top of that, the dude can shoot the hell out of the ball and he shoots the difficult shots. I believe he's still taking like 2/3 of his threes from above the break, which is huge for a big, like having a guy stretching above the arc instead of stationed in the corners where it's much easier to help on drives. And, I think we've seen a lot recently, like Jordan Poole and Jonathan Kuminga being the main drive threats off the bench. They need every advantage they can get. And a guy who can take help away for one, but also make shots when they pass back to him or run little pick and pops. He sets really solid screens as well. Great catch and shoot guy. I would just love to see that. And the passing is awesome. He's such a good like high post passer, passing from the perimeter. He can, attack closeout and make really good kickouts. Still like an S tier outlet passer, like just starting the break. So Warriors are still pretty middle of the pack in terms of transition frequency. They should be higher considering that they have so many good shooters and athletes who can get down the floor right now, especially, Wiggs, Kaminga, Draymond's really been stepping it up there. So a guy who can just rip down the boards and start the break without even having to run down the floor, that would be huge for this team. What do you think, Matt?
what's the same? I think Kevin Love, and also I think one of you guys said this started this off that Warriors Twitter is divided on this. It just doesn't matter, man. It could be LeBron, it could be KD, it could be
That's true.
Michael Jordan, clone, 23 years old. Someone would have an argument for not trying to bring him on. No, I think again, at a certain point, you need NBA players. Kevin Love is just that. He is a real backup big at this point. There's a world where he starts in an offensive-minded series next to Draymond. He's a perfect stretch big. For anybody who wanted a Olynyk earlier in the season, at this point in their careers, yeah, Olynyk's probably like a slightly better player, but for what he's bringing to the table and how many minutes he would get and what he'd be asked to do, this is the same function, right? And bringing up the rebounding is huge. This team is, we can't forget last year, this team was somehow one of the best 5 rebounding teams in basketball. And this year, they're 20th, I think, when I looked. And I think I'm pulling it up now. 1 second. NBA.com. I'm not using Bleeding the Glass, but NBA.com has their defensive rebounding percentage at 14th in the league, which, again, that's not horrible, but overall 20th. And again, if you watch this team enough, though, it feels worse than that. They are the slowest team to defensive rebounds I've ever seen. It just looks like even if they do box out, they're always waiting for the next guy to go get the ball, and they all have that same mindset. Kevin Love alleviates a lot of that. And Chuck, like you said, just a guy, it was him and Bill Walton for a long time as the great outlet passers in the game, right? In the history of the game. And
hey, shout out to Wes Unseld too.
Sound who? Yeah.
Shout out Wes Unseld.
my bad. But it's ridiculous, man. Yeah, so I just think, again, at this point in the season, especially when, Jamichael Green is playing better of late, but I don't think it's really too arguable that Kevin Love's an upgrade. And I know people are looking at the field goal percentage. Listen, when you play as little as he does, when your role, like Chuck said, is primarily stretch the floor, and that's really where a lot of shots come from these days, that's going to be pretty impactful on your field goal percentage. And he's still shooting the 3-ball well, and he's not Cleveland's shooting has been a little rocky overall. They don't have a lot of stretch at all on any position outside of their 2 guards primarily. I think he just do really well in Golden State, man. I don't know what's going to happen. I think if he wants to win a title, I'm being totally realistic. I don't think the Warriors are the first place to go anymore, just given where they're at in the season.
Champs.
Yeah, but they're a 500 team, man. If I'm Love, I'm not looking at the Warriors going, oh man, they're taking me to the top, and that's not unreasonable. I don't think. Again, I think the Warriors are a reasonable bet, but if he's looking at Brian Windhurst said Phoenix. Somebody said Miami. I don't think Miami's more of a contender than the Warriors are, but he's a good fit next to Bam. He's someone who can alleviate their center. But the Miami's shallow. Their front court and their back court, they just don't have a deep team right now. So he'd get minutes there. Could potentially start. So I just think there are other options. I think he'd be a great fit with the Warriors, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he's looking at this team where it has been as rocky of a season from start to now as we've seen so far. So I hope it happens. I think he'd be a great fit. I think he walks into 15 to 20 minutes a game. I think especially Chuck, you mentioned Poole and Kuminga. Can't think of a better stretch big available to open up some driving lanes for those guys.
Yeah. The weird thing too with Love is like, if he's truly just looking to contend, then why did he get bought out from a contender?
Yeah, Cleveland is a contender too.
Yeah, like Cleveland is a better team, I think, than any of the teams we mentioned. Phoenix obviously being above that, but like they're a bit of a question mark right now. They're kind of going to really have to add some guys and figure things out on the fly. But like Cleveland has it close to figured out right now. They're still kind of searching for a wing, but like they're almost there. So I do wonder if, maybe the appeal of just playing in a system that's really friendly for his type, like playing on a team where he can get much more of a role than just, sort of like spot minutes guy. I think like Phoenix would be able to offer that, but hey, like Klay Thompson's got to work the Lake Oswego connections here, drum up some little league memories and try to get him over to the Bay.
Pretty sure Klay beamed him in the back of the back or something. But no, I'm with you, man. Like I think just this team has just such a glaring hole. Like obviously defense is one of their issues, but like you said, Matt, so is rebounding. Like it's a big issue. They can't, when they do get stops, they end up giving up the offensive rebound, and that's just getting rebounds is also a part of defense. Like you're able to get that start to break. So having a guy that can do that, the way I'd see him fit is kind of like a Mo Spates kind of guy, like just pick and pop, be able to stretch the floor. Like you said, we got guys that can go downhill. It's just having another stretch big out there. Obviously, Jamichael Green's played really well as of late, but the front court depth has always been an issue. So just getting another player, like you said, just another NBA player on a roster spot on a roster that has like 4 or 5 just not playing pieces right now. So I think this team needs a spark. I do think that they need to make a move on the buyout market. I don't necessarily know if that is Kevin Love. I would like it to be, but I think you do need to bring somebody in going into the stretch run to help you, especially stem the tide while Steph and GP are out. Because the defense, in my opinion, I feel like it's going to come together. I think they have enough good defenders on this team, especially when Gary Payton comes back. So it's more so just about finding something that's going to get you across the finish line, get you in the top six, and make that difference between winning and losing, which is really small right now. I mean, I feel like the Warriors have punted away a lot of games where, like you said, like fourth quarter, they're going on scoring droughts. Just small things where, there's a lot of games they should have won, but they've all ended up being losses. So that's why you're sitting here at 500. So you do need a spark, but yeah, I like what Kevin Love brings to the table. I think he can collectively raise the grades of all the players that have been playing this so far this season. Speaking of, that's where we wanted to go with this episode. Let's Chuck. I know you've got a nice little there it is. There it is. Nice little performance. What's it called? Report card. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. They still call report cards nowadays in the schools. But we've got our very own Warriors report card for our guys, man. Our guys, the dudes that are 29 right now. Yeah. You guys got your thoughts?
Yeah, so just to be clear, how we're going to do this, guys, is we're going to each of us has more or less been assigned one of the Warriors rotation players, and we're going to be grading those players. And then let's say I'm assigned to grade Steph. Gautam and Chuck would then kind of decide afterwards if I was too high or too low and kind of give their own grade. We'll kind of just rip off each other with that. But with that being said, Chuck was kind enough to award me the first pick in this grading system. I normally don't like grading, but here we are. This is fantastic. Yeah, so I got Steph. I did get Steph, so that was actually a real hypothetical. I'm giving Steph an A. Okay, I'm not giving Steph an A plus or an A minus. I'm giving Steph a nice solid A. He's the Warriors' best player. He's one of the best 2 or 3 players in the league. When he's been on the court, he's been having one of his probably top 3 seasons ever. I don't think that's crazy to say. The reason I'm not giving him an A plus, and this is not a knock again, Steph, if he was healthy, would be indubitably in the MVP conversation right now. So the guy he is what he is. But in my opinion, there's only one guy on this whole list who deserves an A plus. I'll see. I'm just going to spoil that. It's Kevon Looney. I don't have Looney, but he's the only guy I give an A plus. Steph, while he's been fantastic, and this is nitpicking to be clear, like a lot of the other Warriors, he has been occasionally a part of these late game failures, just in wildly poor shot selection, silly turnovers. And in a season where the Warriors are 29-29, every minute's counted more than they have previous years. So Steph has got to settle for the 4.0 here without the plus there. So congrats to Steph. What do you guys think? Am I too high or too low with this one?
I think you're right there, man. I think it'd be hard not to give Steph anything less than an A. You did bring up those turnovers, so I was tempted to give him an A minus after that. But being not so good of a student myself back in school, I will definitely stick with the A. But yeah, you're right, man. This team, like I feel like Steph's had 2 just weird injuries. Like the shoulder was kind of a freak play, and the knee, the whatever ligaments that happened was also kind of just banging knees, kind of an unlucky one. So it wasn't even necessarily that he got hurt from like, oh, he's getting old or something like that. He was playing some really high level basketball, had some big games for us, and we're obviously gonna need Steph to win the title this year. So I'm with you, man. I think it is pretty prudent. Hope just need him back healthy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think an A is well deserved, and I think there are some valid reasons why he hasn't been perfect. I think the passivity at times has been kind of frustrating, where there are times where he's clearly the best player on the court. He's not taking shots, and this team needs him to take shots. Like he can't defer on this kind of team. Like Clay is not what he used to be. There's no Kevin Durant around anymore. Andrew Wiggins, I think his aggression kind of waxes and wanes, which is understandable, especially considering like the huge injury layoff he's had this year. But I think that's a very fair criticism to say, like, Steph needs to be more aggressive sometimes, and he needs to spend every minute out there like he is the best player on the team, because he is by far.
Do you guys think a lot of talk has been, not a lot, there's been talk here and there about defensive slippage. And that's not just Steph, that's the whole team. That's just a matter, again, it's the focus isn't there, and it's also the collective isn't there to kind of take care of one another. I don't necessarily hold that against Steph on his own. The guy's 34, turned 35. He's a 6'3" guard. But yeah, glad we agree. A is fair. I got the easiest job with that one. So
let the real grading
one.
begin. Chuck,
Yeah.
takes away with Clay, man. I know you got the number 2 pick.
Yeah. I tried to like work it down in order, working our way through the starters, but this one was tough. Like I had to take a while to think about it. And I think the thing that, sticks out to me the most is the fact that the guy is coming back and still being like a positively contributing player after devastating injuries is not something I want to take for granted. So I'm sure some people are like, oh, his defense isn't there, he's chucking, whatever. Like, the dude's still really good. He's taking almost 11 threes a game and making 40% of them. Like, doing that at his age, coming off the injuries, taking more difficult shots now than he ever has. Some of that's him, some of that's the roster, but he's still Killer Clay at heart. I will say that like the off-ball defense has been really a concern, even some of the on-ball stuff too as well. I mean, the on-ball is a little more understandable with his legs, but some of the off-ball stuff is just frustrating, man. Like drifting away, getting caught staring at the ball, closing guys out with his hands down. He did it against Kawhi multiple times in that game.
Multiple.
So I came in at a B- because I think you still have to say the dude's amazing. He's still the second best scorer on this team by far. He's still really, really, really good, but it hasn't been perfect. What do you guys think?
Gotham's about to throw a knife through his camera into your neck, dude.
Nah, I mean, obviously, like again, as I said, I was not the best too. So when I see B minuses, I relate to those. And I was like, you know what, I could have gotten like an 85 or an 86, but like, what we're doing here. So I would give him a B. I'd give Clay a B. So I definitely agree with the stuff that your reasoning behind it. I do think that, like, I'm happy you pointed it out, Chuck. Just the fact that he's still able to be our third best, arguably second best player on the team on a nightly basis. I mean, we're seeing Clay have like some of those Clay games. I know he had those 12 threes. He's had loads of 30-point games. He's had a couple 40 balls. So exactly, like I'm from that standpoint, for still being such a high level contributor to what is, we all think it can still be a championship team. And what he's been doing with Steph out, man, like it shouldn't go underappreciated for just the amount of loads that he's carrying right now, just offensively. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Like the defensive stuff is definitely an issue. I like you said, like the off ball stuff for me is more concerning, just because I feel like we've lost a couple games off some bad Clay off ball defensive lapses. The on ball stuff, he is not the Clay Thompson of old, that was that premier 2-way guard. But he still, he still does his job. I feel like on the ball, he's had his moments that he's looked, very spry and being able to cover ground. And this team has, better on ball defenders. So it's not necessarily all on Clay to like be back to that level. So I don't hold that part as much against him. But I'm with you, man. Like it's just what he's been able to do this year. Bouncing back. I think he averaged like 28, 29 for January and just something ridiculous for February too. So he's definitely like getting into form and he's getting there. So I feel like B minus, maybe by like an 81, 82. I'll give him like an 84, 85. Little round up the curve.
I love it.
Yeah, I'd probably go a little higher myself, and I fully agree. I agree that there's been issues, whatnot. That's not really debatable, and I've been pretty hard on Clay throughout the year. But I think the last month and a half, like 5-6 weeks, seeing him actually be a player who, to be totally frank, is kind of carrying the Warriors offense on a lot of nights. I just didn't think he had that in him still. He's still putting up 22 points a game or 21 points a game right now, which is it's just crazy, Chuck. Like you said, coming off the injuries he came off, it it felt like the best was behind us. The best of Clay is behind us, to be clear, right? But
Yeah.
it feels like maybe the best of what's to come post injury might still be ahead of us, just given how he's played this year, which is exciting. But like you said, we're grading him on this year. And as I'm even saying these things, I might be changing my mind a bit because I remember being as frustrated as I was. A lot of those early losses, man, that was tough. A lot of the chucking was harmful. The defense has actually slipped a bit. Again, it's not to say he hasn't been awesome. Again, the guy, like I said, is carrying the offense in a lot of ways. And when you said second best offensive player, Chuck, I was kind of like, what? My first thought is, what about Jordan Poole? Then
His
my
report
own
card's coming,
second
bro.
thought said, what about Jordan Poole? You know, so yeah, no, I agree. I think I'm actually, Chuck, changed my grade. I'm going to leave it to B minus, man. I'm cool with that for now. I think his shot selection early on in the season was really harmful. I think the defensive slippage is definitely worth noting. So B minus is solid. I think there's room for him by the end of the season to be at a B plus, to be honest, B plus A. But for now, I think it's a solid grade for our guy, number 11.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
you brought it up earlier too, like before we were recording. Warriors tied for the worst shooting percentage in the clutch this season. Clay is not responsible for that to like a high degree because the dude just gets the ball in his hands and he flings it. And usually that works, but not all the time in the clutch.
Hey man, I'm saying Clay, you get the B, man. You get the B from me.
I'm going to give Clay a usually sometimes that works on that one.
No, I'm with you, man. Shout out Clay. Shout out Gamesters Clay. Our next guy and third pick, our boy Andrew Wiggins, Air Canada, Maple Jordan. It's a tough year for Wiggins too, man. I feel like he came out the gate and really came out playing like an all-star. The guy that we kind of remembered from the playoffs and the guy that we need him to be on a nightly basis. And then obviously gets hurt, gets sick, misses like 20 some games. And it took him a long time to kind of get back onto that. And I feel like the first real game that we saw him play at a really high level was that Washington game. Had a few bad games before that. Just kind of, I guess, obviously working himself into rhythm. And then missed the Clippers game, and here we are. So I feel like Wiggins is a little weird to grade because he's had his definitely shown obviously what he can do, but again, just the injuries and not having just the same impact, especially when we needed him when we came back. So B minus just seems a little mean, but I feel like that's where I'd give Wiggs right now. I feel like B minus is pretty fair. He's coming from a B minus kid, man. So I know what the feeling is, but like a lot of it again is unfair to Wiggins, like just being injured. He hasn't missed. I think this was the season he missed the most games. So it definitely is tough on him. And I think that Wizards game was definitely an indicator of what he can be and what he needs to be for us to hold down the fort while Steph's out, especially to hold down the fort while Steph's out. So I do expect to see Wiggins, especially after the All-Star break, get back into gear and be that guy we saw against the Wizards because we need him. But up until now, yeah, I'm gonna give him a B minus.
Fair. I think I'm gonna go a little higher on that. I think he's more in like the B plus range. I think the injury really knocked him out of his rhythm. I mean, you can't say enough for how much jarring it would be for a guy who's like one of the Iron Men of the league to miss that long a stretch, and he's clearly struggling to get back, I think, on both ends from there. But the thing I come back to, man, is just the defense. Like the defense he brings every night, the hustle, the activity. Like he's really shown a lot more impact as a rebounder, which we saw all throughout last playoffs. Like the guy was turning into our second Looney in terms of just cleaning up everything on the glass. And I mean, you just can't say enough of how important it is to have a true athletic wing who can take on almost any defensive assignment, play really well, and then stay consistent on the offensive end of the floor. He knocks down his shots. He's not hunting his mid-range shot like he used to. Like he's just been the same, like head down, workman-like guy that this team really needs because, he's typically like one of the more quiet guys, but he just lets his play speak. And that's a dude I have so much respect for. So shout out to two-way Wigs.
Shout out, man.
Yeah, I think I'd probably go I'd probably go with B, more than B minus. I don't think he's been as good as last year. Even to start, I mean, to be clear, he was having his best shooting season before he got hurt. I think this whole team has just been 2-3 happy the whole season, including Wiggins in a lot of ways. Like you said, Jeff, the last little bit we saw, especially against Washington, he's finally getting back in the paint. And that's the Wiggins we all want to see. Going forward, again, this team doesn't have the luxury to have their best athlete on the team primarily taking most of the shots from the perimeter, right? So for them to get where they want to go, they're going to need him to do more of what he did in the playoffs last year. And just a fun reminder that he and Looney were I think, number one and number two leading offensive rebounders in all the playoffs last year, which is just like bonkers. But they're going to need Wiggins to basically be that guy if they want to be higher than 41 and 41. And thus far, yeah, I mean, it's crazy that even given his recent slump, he's still shooting almost 40% from three, which just tells you how hot of a start he got off to and what a good rhythm he was in. I think if he was healthy for most of December and most of the last 5 weeks, this team probably isn't in the rut they're in, but that's not what we're doing now. So I'm going to leave him at a B, solid B. A B minus is totally fair, I think.
Solid B, solid. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's kind of on that fringe, but Wiggs has been solid, and I think his as the second part of the season starts, I think just having some time off, feel like he was getting into a rhythm. So I definitely expect that to go up, and we're going to need it. But the next guy, shout out to Snake Draft, Draymond Green. And this one, I feel like Draymond has been the one guy, along with Loon, obviously, but Draymond and Loon have kind of just been holding down the fort. Obviously the team's not where it's at defensively or where it needs to be, but Draymond's still, just one of the greatest defenders we've ever seen. His ability to still run the offense. I mean, I think he looks the most athletic. I think Chuck, you said earlier, he's pushing it on the break all the time. He's trying to get the team out in transition. I feel like he's shooting a lot better. He's making a lot more threes. So I mean, it's not 2016 Draymond, obviously, but offensively, you're getting more production on most nights than we were used to seeing, and that's the Draymond that we need. And that's the Draymond that's going to get paid. Shout out contract here, Draymond too. Whatever his option is. So obviously a lot on the table. So I want to give Draymond a B plus. I think just we're not 29 and 29 if Draymond hasn't had some of the great games that he's had, and a lot of them have been in losing efforts too. I think the last one he had 15, 9 and 7 or something like that, and still lost. But you're seeing it. Draymond has been the heart and soul of this dynasty. He's the guy that's going to get this team going. So I think that just with playing through injuries too, like I know the back was acting up. I know there's some stuff about his foot as well. So banged up, especially with Steph out. So for Draymond, Clay, and the rest of these vet guys to really step up and try and get the team to where they are. Albeit it's not where we want them to be, but they could easily be behind as well. So I think Draymond's been great on both sides. I'm not gonna give him an A just because I feel like there has been some times where
just saying he punched Jordan Poole in the face, man.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's tough, man. But like I'm counting just on the court, but yeah, we don't let off season stuff. Summer, like you never get in trouble for summer school stuff, right? Like Draymond does in summer school. But nah, yeah, I feel like with Draymond, it's such a you need him, and he's been up there and playing some of his best basketball at times. So we're gonna need him to keep it up. Like that's the level we're gonna need with the rest of these guys stepping up as well. So yeah, shout out Draymond.
Yeah, Matt, I'm glad you brought up the famous punch, because I'd be totally on board, like B plus on the A border. But something tells me, and I think Draymond has said it himself too, like he feels like he can't be the vocal leader he used to be. He can't be like, yelling at guys. Like maybe he's kind of lost a step in that locker room. So I think for me that drags it a little lower towards like B minus territory, because the thing that's interesting for me is like this team has not gotten worse on paper defensively than they were last year, but they have been a lot worse. And I think a lot of that comes back on Draymond, because he is the vocal, emotional leader on this defense. And if he feels like he's not respected, then, or if he's not being heard in the same way, like whatever it may be, it's having a tangible effect on them. And usually I would kind of say, you know, oh, things happen, but when you can point directly to what happened and it was entirely his fault, then I feel like you got to knock him a little bit for that, you know, like had he not punched JP right in the mouth in practice, like we might be looking at, you know, still as good of a defensive unit as we saw last year because he can be like the energetic vocal leader that we're used to. But it happened. And I think they've gotten demonstrably worse because of it. So, you know, maybe that's a little projecting on my part, but I'm hard pressed to find reasons why this defense has not been as good as they were last year because you've seen the step up from Jonathan Kuminga. You've seen what Dante brings to the table. I mean, he's no Gary Payton, but Gary Payton's
Got
a
him
Warrior
back too.
now. So if they don't shape it up over this last part of the season and get back to that like top 5 defense that we saw last year, then, you know, you got to wonder like if Draymond is still climbing that uphill battle towards being the locker room leader again.
Yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, that's. Now that you say the punch, it's a good point. It's a good point. Maybe I have to reconsider my report.
Hey, that's what we're
My
Hey,
at.
no,
report
leave your
card.
report, but I'm actually going to zag here. So here's how my grading is going to work, right? I think Draymond's been fantastic this season. I'm going to take him from an A plus to an A for the punch, and then an A to an A minus, just for the defense overall falling. And I think it's totally fair everything you said. To be totally clear, I think that's totally spot on. I think just given the description of the personnel, I think it makes total sense that you're giving the lower grade because their defensive personnel, other than Gary Payton II, which again is a huge loss. I want to be clear on that. That's a huge person to not have. Again, I said this last podcast, I say this all the time. In my opinion, the individual best guard defender in the league per minute. So not having that guy to take care of any point of attack business on the team that sorely lacks that as it is, especially with Wiggins being out as often as he is, and Kuminga being yanked around like a freaking yo-yo, dude. It's tough, right? So I'm giving him an A though because I would go higher, I should say, I guess, just because listen, I think if this team has 6 more wins and they're the 3 or 4 seed, this is probably going to be viewed as hyperbole, but I genuinely think Draymond would be like not in the MVP race, but I think he'd get mentioned every now and then because this team without Steph, given the way they've played, has a lot of times no business being in certain games, being even 500 at certain points. And in my opinion, just again, we've kind of gone back and forth this throughout the year, right? Especially after the playoff. Who's the Warriors' second best player? I think we got to stop that because I think it's just very clearly and obviously Draymond, at least in my eyes, because this team without him right now, if Steph goes out, we kind of just know like they might stay afloat because Draymond is that good on both ends. And I forget what game it was a few weeks ago, but he did everything. I think it might have been the Mavericks game where at the end of the game, he was the point guard. On the defensive end, he was just flying around like a bat out of hell. And he was the only guy organizing the offense in one of those pool stretches where we just don't know what's coming, right? And he's simultaneously kind of taken on the calming Iguodala role in a lot of ways and still kind of maintained his, defensive presence. I just think this team without him if the roles are reversed, it's probably pretty similar with Steph and Draymond. But if Draymond was out right now, this team is far worse off than any other player on the roster besides Steph being out. So I'm going to leave him slightly above that B plus. Definitely fucked the season up by punching JP in the face to start, but I think he's done his best to make amends, and we'll see what happens in the offseason. But I think they're leaning towards just given the moves they've made so far, doing the tough but right thing and keeping him around. So A for our guy Draymond Green.
Love it. Yeah,
That's
and I think
right.
that's a good point too, is like I think we're trying to mesh like the expectations we have for these guys. Cause, you know, if I was just grading Draymond Green the player, I'd give him like an A or an A plus because he's just amazing. But when he set this standard of being like the offensive table setter and organizer and doing all that defensively, and if he's maybe, you know, taking a little bit of slip there, then that's where I start to, you know, walk things back a bit. So like, yeah, am I saying that Andrew Wiggins is a better player than Draymond Green? Hell no. Like that's
No,
not what we're doing here. But yeah, like we're trying to mesh how good these players are versus like what we've expected of them. Because we have expectations of those big 3.
Yeah, guys, I want to be
100%.
clear. If either of you ever punch me in the face, the podcast will it'll take a hit. I'm not sure how, but we'll notice some differences.
Definitely.
I'm gonna fly out there and just beat the hell out of you. And see what happens.
One straight to the kisser right there. I got all the front courts, man. So my front court, or most of the front court. Shout out Wiggs, I guess not the only one, but this guy, come on, Looney. I'm not even gonna waste my time with like a big soliloquy. That's yep, there we go, Chuck. That's an A. Kavon's just the guy, man. He's the loon god. The guys, Steve Kerr says it, man. He's what is it, the moral compass of this team. There's the few players on this squad right now that when they're in the game, you're just confident that you don't have to worry about what they're gonna do. That's Looney. Just to the T. The guy comes in, he just rebounds. He's the only rebounding presence for us in the paint. Just offensive boards, defensive boards. Just he's hitting the jumper here and there. Like Looney's just doing everything, man. Just to have another guy next to Draymond. We talk about the lack of this front court depth, but Looney's played every single game last season and this year. So we kind of take him for granted in terms of just his ability to stay on the court in a season where you've lost Steph, you lost Wiggins. Clay hasn't played back-to-backs until just now. So for Looney to be able to be a night in, night out guy, there's nothing more you can say, man. He's been doing everything we need from him, everything we'd expect, and everything we can ask for, and we're gonna still need it. So come on, Looney, keep it up, man. Big love. Shout out.
Big what?
Big love. Come
Big
on,
love.
Looney, big time.
That's a beautiful nickname for him, actually. Just
big love. Big love. You know what? Yep.
Love it, dude.
Call him that from now on. That's elite.
I not gonna lie, I think you fucked this up so hard, dude. I think this was the only guy in my opinion who should have got an A+. Listen, this guy's played every game. He's not Draymond on defense. He's really, really good though. He continues to be the most underrated switch defender, switch big in the league. Listen, I just think Looney I think he's invaluable, man. You can't.
The statue's going up
guy.
someday.
For what he does, this is not even. You guys think I'm being hyperbolic? I think Looney deserves a statue without a doubt. Like, this guy needs to be out there. He needs to be running. Like, I need to know via his run that he's in pain somehow. Like, indicate to me that he doesn't want to be running, but he is. Listen, it's an A+. It should be an A+. Gautam, it was a swing and a miss, man, and I can't believe it, dude. Softest toss in the world, dude. Listen, yeah, I can't say enough. The guy is one of the best rebounders in the league, in my opinion. He is on the best contract in basketball, I think, for what he is. He's part of the best starting lineup, started the best five-man group in the league, and it's not coincidence. When push came to shove in the playoffs last year, he was on the floor. This year, he's been an Iron Man, played in every single game again for 2 seasons in a row for a guy who, at 23 years old, he looked like Tim Duncan at 38, the way he moved. So this is just, it's incredible. A+, Gautam, I'm never going to let this down, man.
I did it so that you could have this moment, man. You said he was your only A+. I couldn't take it away from you.
I appreciate it, man.
Can we take a minute for Matt, our resident pessimist, being being all ups across the board? Like,
look at that.
Look at the growth. I love it. I'm right there with you, dude. Like, I think the whole availability is the best ability is such a cliche, but when you combine that, like being out there every single game, now the kind of on a technicality because Mikal Bridges got traded and wasn't available, but now the reigning Iron Man leader for the NBA, rocking close to 160 straight games now. Not only being out there every night, but he doesn't take a night off. Like, he's out there defending the hell out of whatever's thrown in front of him, whether it's bigs in the post where he does not concede ground. It's like, you better have a good hook shot because you're not going to get a shot at the rim if you post up on him. And if you switch him out on the perimeter, like, as the Warriors all say, wrong guy. Like, you're not going to beat him. He's going to either force you into help or just like outright deny your shot. And like, dude, for a guy who like, when he got drafted, the reason he and Bob Myers, I think, really linked up is because they had just had the same hip surgery and Kavon was half his age, which in hindsight should have been a huge red flag. But hell, if
not for empathetic Bob, man.
And that's all Kavan, man. Like the dude is just an unreal worker. He's out there getting his boards, he's setting great screens, he makes an unreal like secondary like DHO hub for the offense behind Draymond. He just does everything that's asked of him every night, and he's out there every game. So yeah, that's an A+ right there for me.
Hey man, if anybody's
I also
wondering
wanna
why I
say
never
he's-
became a teacher, just nobody agreed with any of my grades. So this is my this is my calling to say, the teaching was never in the blood. With my mom's a teacher
rough,
too.
man.
She'd be disappointed. Sorry, mom.
Oh,
Sorry,
I
I'm
didn't
not
know
as
that,
good of a
man. That's
grader.
great, dude. How we been doing this for 3 years now, man? You haven't brought that up, dude.
And then we never had to grade stuff. And like looking at this, thank God, this is
That is wild, dude. Yeah, I was gonna say Looney's top 10 in both offensive rebound percentage and overall rebound percentage, man. That's just the guy's 6'8". I'm sorry. It's not I think he had
He
quite
can't jump.
literally
He can't jump, and he's
the
doing
man.
that.
The man doesn't have two working hips, and he's one of the best defenders in the league. It's actually
he had
should be studied
one of the
by
greatest rebounds
scientists.
I have ever seen. Last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, he was boxed out by two guys and somehow behind the hoop fought for a rebound. I think it was against Dallas or it was against Cleveland, but the guy just fights. He is a warrior through and through. I can't say enough
I'm with you,
about how
bro.
disappointed I am.
Statue loading.
It's coming. It's coming, dude. Well,
Yeah, get
it's
the
my
grading
turn
out of
here,
my
man.
hands, man. Set the curve, Matt. Let's get the real teacher.
No,
Set the
no.
curve.
We
Set the
you're a
curve.
tough grader, man. You know what I mean? You're like sporadic, like one of those teachers who like you kind of throw the rubric out the window and you kind of just like you let your
Yeah, with
let
the
your heart
vibe,
do the
like
talking, man.
yeah, man. That's
I love it. I love
everybody
it.
gets
We need you
A's.
out there. Yeah. So our next guy here is Dante DiVincenzo, the real the real Warrior sixth man. Listen, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, JP. Listen, I just think this guy is also he's been as advertised and kind of everything the Warriors can hope for from him on both ends of the ball. He's not GB2, and I know for whatever reason people just can't let that go. There are so many tweets about if we had GB2 instead. It's like we don't, man. It's been 6 months and we are where we are. Please relax. Dante's been a godsend. Okay, he along with the 5 stars only got the positive net rating this year for this team. It's not a coincidence. He's on the ball. He's good. He's not great. He's crazy good in the passing lanes. He is the closest, facsimile to Andre Iguodala offensively I think they've had since Iguodala just taking care of the ball. He gets the Warrior system. He's a really good shooter, shooting 41 or 42% this year. He's also he's clutch. Like he's hit some incredibly big shots this year, and I said before the year that don't be surprised to see this guy closing games out over Poole and over Clay. Hasn't closed over Clay, and I think Clay has, Clay is Clay. But the fact that we feel more comfortable out there, and again, respect to Poole, the guy's averaging 25, 26 points a game and step out. The fact that I think most of us feel better at the end of a ball game, the ball in Dante DiVincenzo's hands than the Warriors' $28 million player speaks really highly to DiVincenzo, what he's been able to do this year as that Warriors guard. And we see him fitting really well with both Steph, with Poole, with Clay. He's actually, as far as 3-guard lineups goes, they look a lot better with him as opposed to the other combination of 3. He and GP2 are going to be defensively just menacing when the time comes. So I can't wait for it. So I'm going to give him an A. He got off to a slow start in the season. Even an A- because that start was rough. Was not awesome to start. I'm going to start him off with an A- though, and I think he by the end of the season could very well have an A+ if he keeps up where he's been of late.
Yeah, I'm going higher, man. I'm going high. I'm going with an A. I would have said an A+. This would have been my A+, but I did forget that he was out those first few games. But again with a hamstring injury, so I'm not gonna hold that against him. Dante's another guy, man, that you just when he's in the game, like you said, you just are confident. He's kind of like Looney, where you just trust that he's gonna make the right play. The dude's just a hooper, man. He just knows how to play the game of basketball. The shooting's incredible. I didn't think he was this good of a shooter. I didn't think he was this good of a defender. Like I knew he was decent, but his on-ball stuff is insane. He just reads the passing lanes. And like you said, man, he's a guy that you trust, like to play in the playoffs. We're gonna need Dante out there. He's solidified himself into that top 8-9 for the playoff rotation. If and when we get there. So just for him to come in on a $2.5 million deal. kind of is resurrecting his career. I don't think expectation wise, you could have thought he was going to be this good. Just fits so seamlessly, but the guy's been doing nothing but that. He's got to be one of the better players, better signings that we've ever had as a free agent, just throughout this run. So big ups to Dante, man. I'm very, very happy, and I hope he's a warrior for past this season too, man. He just kind of fits in with what this team wants to do and the kind of basketball that they want to play. So Dante's got A plus in my eyes right now.
Yeah, I think Matt, you nailed it. Like I was heading for the A minus all the way, but I mean I could really go either way because it's sort of similar to Looney, like what they're asking of him isn't huge and he's checking all of those boxes. I'd say there have been some moments where he looks a little too trigger happy offensively, but when you're shooting 42% from deep, you're allowed to do that. So that's not a major knock on him. And I think the point too that like everyone is just viewing him through the context of he's not Gary Payton. And yeah, that's true, but Gary Payton's not taking 5 threes a game and hitting 42%. He's not making some of the playmaking reads that Dante can make. And
There's
God,
two different players.
there are two different players. Yeah. And just because they're, essentially filling the same spot on the bench doesn't mean they're similar. Like Dante can handle, he can push the floor in transition. He can make some really, really good reads. Like some of his rat passes off of drives are just crazy. And I love watching this dude just like hunt in the passing lanes defensively, like just bait guys to throw a pass that he knows he can intercept. That stuff is awesome to me. And like he plays so much like a veteran, which is so cool to see. And the guy's only 26. Like he's only been in the league 5 years. Like that is such a huge get for them. And you were spot on, Gautam. Like he's the best free agent signing they've made, not named Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Like in this era of Warriors basketball.
And money time, baby. I know this is the one that we've all been waiting to get to. I think Chuck, are you the one that's setting the curve for this one?
So yeah, let me set the curve here. So I think the thing that frustrates me about the conversation around Jordan Poole, and yeah, like he is the big money man now. He and Wiggins are the bag boys.
Nice.
But the thing that kind of frustrates me is like just because he's getting paid 10 times more doesn't mean he's automatically going to be 10 times better.
He's also only getting paid $3 million. I just want to say that. Like this season, he's only getting paid $3 million. The contract doesn't kick in. So,
yeah, but
semantics, but I know what you mean. But
yeah, no, for sure. And I think we're still seeing so much growth on the offensive end of the floor. Like the fact that he's been able to shoulder so much of the load when Steph has been out, I think has been crazy. Like just seeing that awesome development where he can get so assertive on the ball. He's finally, I think, having some, like there's still a lot of really deep 3-point attempts that I think you'd like to cut out and see him be a little more assertive about going downhill because he can really just get there when he wants to. And he's learning how to like draw contact and finish more consistently. Man, the thing I just really want to bring up is that game against Oklahoma City, like racking up 12 assists, season high. He was making every read. He was executing the right passes. Like he knows to throw 2 hands behind a skip pass to get maximum power. He knows when to throw the bounce pass to confuse the defense. He even has those little dump off passes where he like throws his hands up like he's doing some kind of magic trick. Like he balances the really awesome playmaking stuff like that with just the really solid, simple reads now. So when you combine that with the shouldered scoring load, and obviously the defense has been really bad at times, but I think he's shown a lot of improvement recently. Like he's cutting down on the off-ball mistakes. He's showing some real solid on-ball possessions. One thing I like for him is, he's not a guy who's going to be able to stay in front of everyone. He's going to be in a trail position a lot of times, but he's gotten much better at staying under control, not getting too aggressive and, like pushing them in the back, getting the easy fouls. And he can still get up and block a dude over the top. Like we've even seen rotations where he's like rotating over onto like a center and he's able to strip that ball down from behind because he's just such a such a crazy athlete. So on the whole for that, like he's still a guy who's getting better every single year. And even if there are some ups and downs, like on the whole, he's a better player than we saw last year. So I'm gonna go with a solid B plus for him.
B plus. Matt, I want to hear yours, man. I know you've
Yeah,
got some
no,
JP
totally fair.
takes. I gotta
So,
balance them out before I make my decision.
Totally
so
fair, he
as
says before blowing me up.
yeah, as you guys know, right? As you guys know, I react strongly to our guy JP. So when he's going great, I love him, and I'm total just like, dude, I'm the reaction. My peak reaction marriedness, that's not a word, but is with regards to Jordan probably. Um, I have a harder time with the defense. He is I think a solid trail defender, Chuck. I agree. I just think there are certain points where the guy is quick enough to stay in front of people, and I think saying that he can't. It might be right now more of a matter of he won't. Like he got blown by Eric Gordon the other day. Has the classic little I almost used a term I shouldn't have. He reaches from behind and fouls Gordon going to the rack. And it's like this guy. It's not something we've seen games where he does stay in front of players, right? We've seen this, like I said, we've seen more flashes of defensive potential than we have in the past, but we don't see it often enough to the point where I at least feel like it's excusable that he's not playing that way, especially given the team's current position, right? I think the effort needs to be there more frequently than it is. Offensively, I don't really have much of a problem with him. I wish he would take fewer threes. That's just the whole team probably. But it's just the consistency in this game. It's again just it's late game mistakes. He's 23. I get it. But if we're gonna kind of judge a lot of the young guys for the mistakes they make as a team, I think it's fair to do that same thing for JP right now because a lot of the late game mistakes he's had have cost the Warriors big time, specifically in that Utah game a while back, and just here and there, right? We know that like we said earlier, like I said, you guys didn't necessarily agree or disagree if I don't remember correctly, but I don't trust Jordan Poole at the end of a game like I thought I would going into this year, and I also just think it's problematic that a guy who again, as talented as anybody. I've made Kyrie comparisons since as early as the end of that horrible 2021 season. I just think the guy is so talented and so clever with the ball. But the fact that he can't be on the floor at the end of a game with certainty is really tough, and that's gotta change. And I've started to wonder to you guys aloud, how much of what he's doing, just as a primary ball handler. And to be clear, if the Warriors don't have Jordan Poole and they only have a guy like DiVincenzo, they're not, hovering around 500 without Steph. They are they're geez, what do you think? 250? They're well below. Okay. But I'm just starting to wonder more and more if it's just maybe needing an offensive guard of any kind, whether or not Jordan Poole is specific to what the Warriors need. Whereas I think going into the season, it seemed pretty clear to me that he was a future part of this team for sure. And, he was somebody who could kind of take the reins. I just feel less sure of that than I did before. So I'm going to go lower. I think there's still room to grow. I think the kid is as talented as anybody, but I'm going below the B plus.
Yeah, I mean that's where I kind of get like the whole Jordan Poole debate, because it is really nuanced. Like you have a young, in my eyes, I mean I think the kid can be a star. Like you have a young star guard that's like you said, Chuck, just going through the growing pains of what it takes to become a star. Like Steph Curry at 23 was going through the same stuff that Jordan Poole is going through, whether it was finishing at the rim, shooting, taking the right shots, making reads and playmaking. So for him to be as long as he is in his development to be able to still, hold down the floor. I think when the last 3-4 games of Steph was out, he's been averaging 28, 29. Even the one where Steph was out with the shoulder, I think he averaged something close to that as well. So, it's hard because like it's kind of similar to a Draymond. Like you're not winning these games without Steph and Wiggins, without what Jordan Poole has done for this team. But that being said, like you said, Matt, there's been so many just late game turnovers, mistakes, stuff that you wish was a little further along in terms of not seeing so many times. I get it, you see it a couple of times early in the season, and that's part of it. But it's kind of becoming, like you said, like just a thing where you do trust Dante DiVincenzo to have the ball more than Jordan Poole, and that's not what you'd want, or that's not what you would have thought going into the season. That's not what you would have hoped for. So it's a very nuanced like criticism for JP for me. Like I think he's doing all the right things. I think he's right there, and outside of like some 3, 4, 5 minute stretches here and there, like he gives you good games on a nightly basis. He's getting better shooting. I think he's kind of got that Steph Curry syndrome where, Steph has that like just irrational confidence to make and take any shot, even when he's feeling it. I feel like Jordan Poole does that a lot more often, and he's not Steph Curry, which is not like a slight to him. The guy's still like a dynamic young guard, but I feel like just been playing with Steph, I'm sure that kind of rubs off on him just to have that flair for theatrics. But I feel like we see it a little too much from Jordan Poole. When sometimes I feel like he hasn't necessarily earned like that level of a green light. But again, like you're not here without Jordan Poole. I think he's going through the developmental pains that you should expect. I don't think it's crazy if you did expect him to have some sort of just like not necessarily fall off, but just like growing pains in his game. So I'll go a little lower. I'd probably give him a B. But it's probably one of those like 86.3s where you're trying to round up, but can't because the teacher sucks. But it's one of those. But Jordan Poole, man, like you guys know, I got nothing but love for him. I think he's going to develop more and more. And the other concern also is just his inability to make that same impact off the bench. Again, it might be just a roster thing, playing with some of these younger guys. But you'd like to see that kind of impact translate into more of a 6-man role because that's what he's going to be when Steph comes back. But to be able to step in for Steph, Jordan Poole has done a wonderful job this year and just got to clean some things up. But that's where this team is at in general. You're 500, so I feel like it's just kind of par for the course.
No, I think you nailed it, man.
Next guy, man, poor this is just the mean one. I feel like I know
this
it's
one
gonna
breaks
be
my heart. This
it
one
sucks,
breaks my
man.
heart.
I know it's gonna be low and like rightfully so, but like, man, who's setting the curve for this? Was it Matt?
We got our
Chuck.
number
Oh,
one
Chuck.
teacher.
Yeah, no, Matt, you're setting the curve for this one.
No, I don't think so.
No, it says Matt. Set the curve, teach.
The notes are what they say. The notes say what they say.
Oh, you know what?
Nice.
I lost you guys for a second. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, it is me. It's me. I made a mistake. Yeah, Moody. Listen, I genuinely feel for this guy, and there's not like. I just want to point out real quick. We kind of saw Moody show out at the end of another game it was during garbage time, more or less. But when that kid feels like he's free to play basketball, he's so much better than when he gets thrown in the middle of a game. And he's not. I don't think right now he's not Jalen Williams of OKC, right? I don't think he's that good right now. I think Jalen Williams is my guy. Can you imagine I say can you imagine, but who knows what our guy Steve Kerr would do with Jalen Williams?
Santa Clara or
but,
Arkansas? Santa Clara or Arkansas?
I'm talking
Santa Clara.
I'm talking the Bay Area, Jalen Williams, but yeah. You gotta say Santa Clara or Arkansas version. The Santa Clara version. The Santa Clara version, he's not that, but I still think I don't know how you guys feel, but I still think this guy can be getting minutes. It just needs to be it's gotta be unconditional love from our guy Steve, man. It can't be, it's a mistake and you're out because I can't do that, man. I'm getting observed on the job, man. I'm sweating bullets. Okay. So I don't know, man. I feel for Moody. With that being said, just he does make some silly mistakes here and there. He does foul too much, but you know what? That doesn't surprise me given that if you do silly things when you're being watched like a hawk. Okay, it's just what happens. So I feel for the guy. I think he's talented enough to be in this rotation. I think, in the scheme of things, I think he's a really good fit next to Kuminga on the bench. I think he's a good fit next to Moody on the bench, next to Poole, pardon me, on the bench. And I think, again, as a shooter, as a long but pretty slow defender, he can be effective as a bench player. But he hasn't been thus far. He has not been able to get on the floor. And so I can't give him anything higher than I'm going to give him a C. Just because, again, disappointing after last year's playoffs. He started some games. He played big minutes in one of those Mavericks games the Warriors won. It was one of the closer games, too. I think Kerr went with him over Warriors legend in Gotham's Bane, Damian Lee, towards the end of that series. And, it's disappointing where he's at now, but I still believe Moody can get there. He's not the defender, I think, that some people, I don't know who people were doing him as like the GP2 replacement, which just never seemed reasonable given the foot speed, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good defender. He's not been this year. He's not been the reliable, steady force that the step-in starter we thought he could be. Not even close. Obviously, he's not in the rotation, but I think there's hope still there, and I'm giving him a C. And I'm not sad the Warriors kept him over the deadline. So, what do you guys think?
I think you're spot on. I think the context isn't doing him any favors because, like you said, the end of that Clippers game where he gets a couple long closeouts, he attacks them both, he goes for some finishes. He tried to absolutely murder Mason Plumlee at the rim. It did not go well, but he went for the one-handed hammer, and I have to respect it. Like, when the guy's playing with confidence and when he's playing without fear of just being yanked, it's really good. And I think, people have been too hard on him, and I think they've been too hard on Steve Kerr because the guy is still struggling to figure it out. Like, it takes you a while to figure out how to play wing defense in the league if you're not like a Kuminga level athlete. So, he doesn't have the same rope to sort of make up for those mistakes, like Jonathan does, because Jonathan can miss a read for a second or like be a little late on the ball. But then he's like, whatever, I'm just going to like contort myself crazily around this screen and like chase the guy off the perimeter and then get back in front of him somehow and still shut him down. Like, Moses can't do that. And, Kerr needs to like trust the guys that he's playing right now, especially with a team that is struggling. And I think the hard part is they're not struggling enough to where you're just like, you know what, just give him minutes and see what happens. But they're also not good enough to do that. So it's been kind of the worst scenario for him. The reason I'm going to agree with your C grade is because I think he has been pressing a lot. He's taking fine shots, but some of the reads he tries to make, like some of the turnovers are just not like he's playing outside of his capabilities at times. And that would be okay if this was a team that's, in the Wemby sweepstakes, or if he's just like getting spot minutes when they're, 39 and 19 instead of 29 and 29. So that's the reason I think it's fair. Growth isn't always linear, but I think it is fair to say he's taken a little bit of a step back this season because he's trying to press. And again, that goes back to the context he's in. But I do get the feeling like this would be a totally different conversation if this was a team that was just like, hey, you're getting 20 minutes a night. Let's see what happens. Because they can't afford to do that right now. And it sucks for Moses and it sucks for this team, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it really feels like he was a casualty of that poor start. That start took away any leeway that they had to really, and you unfortunately and somehow confoundingly see this with Kuminga still in some ways, but Moody I think was the greatest. He suffered the most because of that 3-7 start, because there was no chance that Kerr, and like you said, you can't blame Kerr too much because they're not in a position to even take risks like that right now. So I think that was a good point, Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, I will say C's get degrees, and I don't think Moses Moody's graduating this year. So I would have to go lower, man. I just think the expectation for him was coming in to be a rotation piece, and whether that was the right assessment or not, that was what it was. And so to have that as your expectation as one of your premier role players, a guy that's, we've talked about a lot, man, this roster is just lacking playable pieces. And for Moses Moody to be one of those guys that was thought of coming into the season, and some of it's obviously not his fault. I think you guys are right with the poor start and just not being able to have the luxury to play him through his mistakes. And I think that he's had some. I think he really changed the game, that Wizards game coming in defensively. So it's not to say that he's not gotten better or whatever it is, but for him to just have pretty much no role on this team at this point. It's definitely disappointing, just from where the hype and what we thought he could be coming into the season. So for that, I'm gonna have to give him lower, closer to a C- D range. And a lot of it's not his fault. That's why I feel bad, just like in terms of his situation. And I think same with Wiseman. They were kind of in the same boat, and obviously Wiseman was able to get out, and he's in that necessary playing time. I'm with you, man. I'm happy they kept him. I do think that he still can develop. He's got the the silhouette of a good player is in there. I just think he's just gotta get more playing time, and unfortunately that's just not gonna happen this season. But don't I'm not giving up on him yet. But
Yeah,
definitely,
cost controlled, high upside wing and a good contract the next
yeah,
couple of years
like
is not a bad thing to have. So
not the worst place to be. But again, it just kind of feels like one of those wasted roster spots that obviously this team needs right now.
yeah,
100%.
agreed.
Who's
So I think I have JK, unless I goof this up too.
nah,
And I expect one of you to tell me in the next couple seconds if that's the case. So
Nope, he's
listen,
all yours.
I have Kaminga. I love this guy. I love Kaminga. Kaminga is the epitome of like anybody who wants the Warriors youngsters getting more minutes. I don't always agree with you. Kaminga is the guy who actually should be getting a lot more minutes. He loves going to the rack. His mid-range game all of a sudden is just turning into this like actual weapon, which is absurd. Like the last 5, 6 games, Chuck, I think you had the numbers pulled up somewhere. I forget what they were, but they were efficient across the board. He's shooting the three ball really well late. He's taking too many of them, probably. But he's looked more in this last 5, 6 game stretch in the minutes he's gotten like a future star than he has as a player ever. And that's because this guy is a top 99 percentile athlete in the league. If he's making jump shots, it's one of those like, okay, you really can't do a whole lot. He loves playing on the post. He can finish with both hands. He really shows some passing chops too, and a lot of it feels kind of like every now and then it feels like this guy gets kind of like, okay, he gets in a pickle and happens to find a decent dump off pass. It's not always like he knows what's happening until he gets up in the air, which can be a double edged sword, right? But a lot of the time he's driving and he's finding shooters and he is making a little extra pass that seem, as fast as basketball is and as fast as it needs to be, they seem premeditated at times. And I think this guy really is the limit for Kaminga, and I think he deserves a lot more minutes than he's gotten so far. I can't give him an A. That doesn't feel right. I think some of the off ball stuff is still problematic. I think it's tough. Again, it's a double edged sword, right? He's doing things that get him pulled, but I think he needs to do those things sometimes to grow as a player. And I think as far as what hurts the Warriors, I don't think that's one of their top 5, 6 problems. Is Kaminga's shot selection or his off ball defense. And just to go on his defense real quick, the guy is a stud on the ball. He is quite literally guarding everybody from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to Kawhi Leonard and giving them fits, like actual fits. He made Kawhi's life hard the other day on a few different possessions, and that's not nothing, especially when Kawhi was on the heater he's on. So I've loved this season from Kuminga, especially the last couple months. I hope he continues to get more minutes because he needs to. And again, I think Chuck, you said this the other day, I think, right? This guy is just the defensive upside on the ball is just through the limit, through the roof, pardon me. And so if the mid-range shot is going, if the post game is real, if the three ball is anywhere from 35 to 39%, that's an all-star right there. So I'm giving him a B plus. I'm not going to give him an A, but I think a B plus seems apt. What do you guys think?
with you, man.
Yeah, just to follow up on those numbers too. Like, so the ones that you referenced hasn't been updated for the Clippers game, but since the new year, 61% at the rim, a little below average for where he should be. You'd love to see him be more towards like that 70% mark, since a lot of that's coming on cuts and his lefty finishing isn't quite there yet, but that's a nitpick. 61% on the short mid range. So the fact that he's like taking these kind of short middies and making them at the same clip he's making them at the rim is crazy. 50% on long twos and 47% on threes. If you told me that Jonathan Kuminga could, like a year ago, if you told me that he had sustained those numbers over a month plus of play, I would have said no. Like that's that's not happening. But it's the exponential growth for this guy that's crazy to me. And Matt, I agree with your grade because I think he still has like some issues. I think the premeditated drives are still a thing, but the thing that for me that's crazy is the game looked too fast for him last year, and now it does not. Like he looks like he's playing within the pace. He's doing the right things. He's making reads off of his drives instead of kind of just deciding what he's going to do once he makes the drive a lot more often than not. And you just can't say enough good things about the defense. Like having a guy with prototypical wing size, a huge wingspan, really quick feet, who's putting himself in good spots, making incredible rotations off the ball too. Like, I mean, outside of their starters, like he is far and away the best defender on this bench. It's not even close, and just in terms of the versatility he can offer. Because I love Dante, but once he's not guarding like the Mike Conley's of the world, like the smaller guards that he can sort of like physically dominate, it's not really there. And when you have a switch everything scheme and you have a big who can take on, a wing who can take on any assignment from a guard all the way down to a big, like he's had some possessions where there's one I think of and just reference all the time where early in the season when they had that game where everyone sat against Pelicans and they just got their doors blown off. There was one play where it was like, I think it was like multiple times Jonas Valanciunas, one of like the strongest guys in the league, tried to post him up and got nowhere. like he did not concede any ground to a dude taller than him, stronger than him, weighs more than him, much more experienced than him, which is nuts. And the other night too, like against LA, he had two drives in particular I want to bring up that I think kind of sum up where his game is at. One, he drives on Paul George and he, puts a little shoulder into him, like tries to get some separation, just blows him off the ball, like
Moved him.
It creates 2 feet of separation against like one of the better defensive wings in the league. And he had another where he drives on Kawhi and he faked him up in the air, stayed on his feet, and got a trip to the line. Like, those were not things that I thought, like the physical dominance, yeah, that's always been there. But the actual craft starting to come along his game on the offensive end of the floor has been awesome. And no, he's not going to be a 47% three-point shooter going forward. But even if he's just league average out there, if he's starting to hit these mid-range shots, he's dominating on the drives, he's cutting and screening, like we've seen earlier. The graphic too I thought was crazy was that of all the players on the Warriors who screen often for Jordan Poole, that being Kevon Looney, JaMychal Green, and Draymond Green, Kuminga screens generate the most points per touch for the team. Like, that's nuts. And one other thing, Kuminga is not screening for Steph enough, because that could be an absolutely lethal duo that they really need to unlock. So yeah, I'm right with you on the B+. Like, this guy he's a killer. And I can't wait for him to be like the defensive future of this team.
I mean, I
could
couldn't have put it
too,
better.
man.
Yeah, the offense is going to be there too, man. I would totally agree with it. I don't think I could add on to much more what you guys both said. But I'm going to adjust my grade. I was going to stick with B+, but I'm going to go higher. I think, and Chuck, you kind of swayed it for me, man, when you said, thinking back to a year ago, if you would have thought Jonathan Kuminga was this good. And I feel like most of the answers for people were going to be no. Just the leap the guy's taken. He's solidified himself as a guy that you trust in the playoffs, the guy that you trust with big minutes. And I don't know if everybody was convinced that's what Kuminga would develop into. So obviously, yeah, is there stuff to clean up? Obviously, like he's not there yet. I think, again, just I love the way he's just driving though. I think he's not selling for bad threes. On a team that takes a lot of bad threes. So the guy's just got so much room to grow. But for him to have the role that he does have right now, I think he deserves to be in the A category. I think that he's played himself into one of the better rotation pieces on this team, and the more minutes for Kuminga, the better. I think we can all agree that he needs to be out there as often as possible.
I so desperately want to see, especially when Steph is back, Dre, Kuminga, Wiggins, Clay, Steph. And I just think that lineup, if it does what it's supposed to do, I think that could be it. And I trust Kuminga I want him in a closing lineup at some point, because I think he can be out there. And I think that Curry needs to trust more to be out there, because he is just playing so heady now, and he does defer way more than he used to with Steph on the floor. Like, he understands the game plan when Steph's out there now in a way that I think will really accentuate his value. But needless to say, we've given Joku his flowers, right? So we've got Michael Green next. Which of you two guys has the
I got
pleasure
my
of grading Michael Green?
the last of my front court fantasy team plus Andrew Wiggins. But Jermichael Green, man, I love the signing when we got him. I think that just seeing him in that Denver series, just his ability to defend, just be that rebounder and hit corner threes. So when we signed him, I was definitely I thought that he was going to be a solid rotation piece and somebody that could fit into the system. And obviously it was a little slow start, I think, for Jermichael Green. Just I guess whether it was getting used to the offense and then he got hurt and he had that infection. But we were really starting to see him come along. I think his last I couldn't tell you how many games, but the last few games that he's been playing, it feels like he's got that toughness back, that just that interior presence that this team just really really needs. And he's been hitting the three on a pretty solid basis. I don't have the numbers or anything, just eye test. It feels like he's been shooting the ball really well. But he's playing a role that this team needs. It's front court depth. We talked about Looney, we talked about Draymond, and both these guys just need a break. And for Jermichael Green to be able to come in now, especially the last 5, 7 games, 10 games, whatever it is, to come in and really just be that big man for the second unit. He's been playing great. So I'll give him a B. I'll kind of look past the initial season struggles, just being so that he's a vet, took some time to get adjusted. But you've heard Steve Kerr talk about when they did sign him, they felt like he was a guy that could come in and play in the system and play well in the system next to these guys. I think listening to Draymond and Dante talking about Jermichael Green and just the roller coaster that he's been on this season in terms of staying healthy and carving out a rotation piece for himself. He was out of the rotation for a while too. I think Steve Kerr touched on as well. So for him to play himself back into being a rotation piece has been huge. And we're gonna need him to go forward. I can see it. I put him on the B- B range, but I'll give him the benefit of that just with going to the All-Star break with some solid games under his belt.
Yeah, you make me feel a little bad for going lower on him, but your instincts were right. Since coming back from the injuries, hitting 52% of his threes.
Eye test never fails.
It's insane. That's the mind of a hooper right there. He knows. He knows when the shots are falling.
Shoot, baby.
But yeah, man, like it has been brutal, like the persistent wrist problems that seem like something that's just kind of not going away, something he's just gonna have to deal with. The infection, like getting COVID, like that stinks.
That sucks.
Like that sucks, dude. And you feel bad for him because when you come in on a 1-year deal to a team that's supposed to be proven, not being able to find that consistency is pretty rough. But I do like what he brings to the table from a rebounding perspective. I love that offensively, not only can he like hit the shot sometimes, but the guy is really good at just like finding the soft spots in the defense, like knowing when to just very subtly snake across the baseline into the dunker spot. He's a really good cutter, I think.
Very solid passer from the post too, man. Like,
yeah,
he's good reads.
He's been in the green in terms of assist to turnover ratio, which is what you love to see from a big. Like as long as you're helping more than you're hurting, that's awesome. And man, the cutting too. Like I think Wiggins and Kuminga are sort of 1 and 2 in terms of just like bailing this team out with really timely cuts. But there have been so many times where like someone drives the baseline, they have no idea what the hell to do with the ball. Like all their options are closed off. And then boom, like Jermichael Green is cutting down from the perimeter. He's inside. He's getting a pass. He's slamming it home with authority. I'm still going to go a little lower just because I think I'd like to see the defense be better. I'd like to see him be a little more switchable. Obviously, they didn't sign him to be an on-impact rim protector, but he's not really doing much there. So, he's been solid for what he is. Like, being on like that B- C+ range is it's what you get. What
it's
you
degrees, man. You get degrees with those. You get degrees with those.
He's passing for sure.
Passing for sure.
Yeah, I'd go you say C-, Chuck? C-, C+. I'm going C- or C probably. It's not. I want to first of all shout out the guy for the last 10 games or so because, like you said, he's been really good recently. Actually, not incredible, but he's been a backup big, which the Warriors that desperately needed all year. If he had been as reliable as he has been recently to start the season, the Warriors probably be in a little better shape. I don't think a whole lot of their issues obviously extend far beyond, pardon me, Michael Green. But I go lower. But I think again he's trending in the right direction and has been for quite some time now. TBD on what the Warriors do with a buyout, but if he's their third big and he's playing like he has been recently, and it's just having an option. It is just having a body sometimes that matters.
Chuck, make him a B minus for me, man. Can't have two grade levels below. I'll go B minus. I'm sorry, Jermichael. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry, man.
My kind of grader, dude. I grade like that. It's like, hey, you've worked really hard. I'm giving you.
Yeah, like I felt, but like you went with the C plus, and I was like, all right, man, I can't be 2 grades off. Like we'll go B minus.
No, stick with it, man. Stick with it. But yeah, I can't go much higher. But I think going forward, he's looking a lot better. But his play to start the season and for most of the first 30, 40 games, besides his really unfortunate health situation for a while, he was not. He was silly, man. He was not rebounding. He was turning the ball over in ways that I just couldn't imagine a veteran of his stature would turn the ball over. And it was really ugly for a while. But yeah, I think going down to a C minus is probably where I'm at.
Oh, I think that's more than fair.
Very fair.
Swinging in the opposite direction now. We're down to our two-way guys. So I think we wanted to nail down like everyone who's consistently been in the rotation. I think trying to grade Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ryan Rollins, obviously James Wiseman no longer on the team.
Yeah.
I'd give Gary Payton an A+ just for walking in the building.
Vibes.
Pure vibes. Being the young glove, being sick. But yeah, these are the guys we got right now. And Ty Jerome, man, like being a two-way guy, like there are no expectations really. Like if you're not really contributing, it's kind of whatever. And if you are contributing, like he does every time he plays, like I just can't get enough of watching this dude. Like his offensive process is so cool. Like the way he's not the most athletic guy, so he knows he needs to be like technically sound. He'll put a defender on his hip. He'll keep them there. He'll hit his nasty floaters. He doesn't you don't even need to get to the rim when you're hitting 60% of your floaters. It's just nuts. And sitting right at 51% from the field. Well, I should say 57% on twos, 41% on threes, 91% from the line.
50, 40, 90, baby.
Just absurd production. And I know he's probably not going to be able to get the qualifications because he hasn't played that many games, 36 games so far this season. But man, if you're putting up a half season of 50, 40, 90 ball and you're still doing enough defensively, I think there have been some off-ball struggles. But he knows exactly what he is. And that is a role player I love, where he's not trying to do too much. He's not, trying to put the team on his back, and he's not heat checking. He takes the right shots. He makes the right reads on defense. He makes the right passes. Just such a solid all-around guy. So I'm going to go ahead and pop an A- on him, because if you're getting a rotation caliber guy out of a two-way contract, everyone wins, baby. Someone's going to pay Ty Jerome a lot of money this offseason to be a backup guard, and they should, because he's a real NBA player.
I love it. I love it.
Go ahead, Gautam.
No, I was about to say, man, I got nothing more to add, bro. I love Ty Jerome. Just his ability to be just that quintessential point guard. Like the guy is the definition of a point guard. Will make the right play. Just it feels like the game settles down when he's out there. Another guy that you trust. I like his shot too. I think clearly, he's shooting 41% from three. That push shot is awesome. So for a two-way guy to come in and be to be fair, both of our two-way guys have been able to carve out a niche for themselves on this team. But Ty specifically, just especially in a season where you lost Steph Curry for a lot of games, to be that third guard next to Dante and Jordan Poole. Ty Jerome's been great. I think an A- is perfect. So I love Ty Jerome.
Yeah, I also love Ty Jerome. One of my great wishes and one of the great tragedies of the last 3 years is that Brad Wanamaker was Brad Wanamaker was not Ty Jerome for the 2020-2021 season. I can't like Gautam said, I can't add a lot to it. I think the guy is just really a really good offensive basketball player. And he works his ass off on defense. He's not good. He's not a good defender, but he works
He's like
really hard.
5'10", bro.
That's a lot of the battle, man. He's a good transition player somehow. He's probably one of their better finishers in transition. That's mind blowing. That floater chuck, like you mentioned, that is just what an absurdly efficient shot for Ty Jerome, man. And again, just add him to this deep Warriors guard rotation where you trust that guy to have the ball in his hands in a lot of situations, especially with the right personnel around him. So I might even, just given what he's brought, I can't do it. No, I can't do it. I'm going to leave him at an A-. I was going to say if the first part of the season he was not great and he's probably over relied upon, but he's been awesome. I think A- is totally fair.
And last but not least, Anthony Lamb. Chuck, I know you're the one setting the curve for this one. Take it away, man. I want to hear this.
Yeah, I got to counter you right off the bat. Last and definitely least. Man, I think when we were doing this early on, I kind of wanted to like wait and see what everyone was doing, so like we didn't have any spoilers. But I definitely spoiled my rating on Anthony Lamb earlier. Directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. I mean, obviously this is all coming down to the off the court stuff. So like you won't catch me seeing good things about this man in a public space ever. But man, on the court too, like the guy is just like one of the most headache inducing perimeter defenders I've seen. Like he's so rough at closing out sometimes, like just making so many boneheaded decisions. Like last night, he checks in against the Clippers and immediately just like gets all up in Eric Gordon's airspace and fouls him on a three. He does this kind of stuff all the time, like closing out with his hands down, doing all these just really like mistakes that you can't have if you're trying to be like a rotation guy. And, I think it spoke to how much they just value catch and shoot shooting because he's still been solid at that this season. And, he can make some good passes here and there, but man, I don't even think it's close. I think he's been our worst rotation player by a mile. And, if he wasn't like a prison candidate off the court, you'd probably feel pretty good about like, hey, we got a guy who can hit some shots and make some passes on a two-way deal. But screw this dude. Like no. So jail for me.
Body that shit, Chuck. I'm gonna keep it just strictly basketball. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. He's mind numbing sometimes. Just with, I feel like the three also was just such found money. Like I feel like he just struck like fool's gold for a couple weeks, and we all kind of just, myself included. I mean, I thought he was, a better shooter, but I feel like he takes a lot of like whenever he's open, he's gonna take it. I feel like a lot of times it's not necessarily the best shot. It seems like Steph Curry doesn't like playing with him either. I think there's been a few clips now that's going around of Steph just not vibing with them. So yeah, I mean, I don't want if we had to sign one of Ty or Anthony Lamb, I think it's clearly Ty Jerome. Anthony, I would rather have Quindary Weatherspoon. I've been saying this since training camp, and we didn't sign the guy. I would 1,000% have him over Anthony Lamb right now, especially right now. Purely from a basketball sense. The dude is just one of the forgotten two-way guys. I'll miss Quindary, but yeah, I don't have if we want to put a grade on it, I'll give him like a D plus. And just, yeah, he just pisses me off every time he's on the court. And it's not even from like an off the court thing. That shit just, I don't know how he's still on the team, but purely from an on the court perspective, he pisses me off when he's on there. The games that he's in street clothes, I look forward to because Ty Jerome is playing, and that's amazing. So I'm looking for taking us back to the buyout market stuff that we talked about, Kevin Love. I wanted to take Anthony Lamb's minutes, whoever that is. Just get this guy out of the rotation, man. There's no way that a championship team and playoff contending team should be playing him right now in a crucial rotation piece. That's kind of where the problems have been. Just that kind of spot. Your 9th, 10th guy, 11th guy, whoever it is. But in a regular season, those matter. And this guy's not cutting it, man. It just irks me.
Yeah, can I just, before Matt, we get your grade, like, I'm glad you brought up the Steph thing too. Like, that clip we all saw of Steph going up to him and trying to explain to him, like, hey, you did this.
Yeah.
We need you to do this.
Get
Like, we
up,
don't know
dude.
what was going on there. And Lamb just like blows him off. Like, dude, I don't care who you are. If Steph Curry talks to you, you listen.
You
Like,
listen.
plain and simple. Like, you can think whatever he's saying is complete bullshit. I don't care. Like, just acknowledge him as the leader and the face of this franchise when you are like just a guy. You know what I mean? Like, that is so ridiculous to me to like not give
You know
these
what?
guys.
That should be jail. Fuck. Looking off
Yeah,
Steph Curry.
throw
You
him
kidding
in
me?
jail just for disrespecting Steph.
That in my world, that is definitely a bookable offense. Can't be doing that to Steph.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to start just by the whole thing's been disappointing with the Warriors this year. For signing a guy with the allegations he has against him right now, for an organization that prides itself supposedly, as being relatively progressive and supportive of groups that need support in whatever way, shape, and form that is. And Anthony Lamb shouldn't be on the roster. I think we agree on that. I also think the on-court stuff, the things people see that work, like you said, Gautam, the three does feel like fool's gold a little bit, but he's been making it. The defense, people like his defense because he's got pretty good foot speed laterally, but if you just watch the guy for a few minutes, you're going to see him overhelp
Too much.
multiple times. He'll help off the strong side. He'll do all kinds of things that you just shouldn't be doing, and the Warriors pay for it every time. I'm gonna just leave no grade. I'm gonna leave no grade for him. That's not. I don't feel bad about it. I think his play has been probably overrated, and just don't feel comfortable giving this guy a whole lot. But wouldn't be passing necessarily, and I think, yeah, I hope he's not on the roster come crunch time.
Yeah.
Nah,
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed that is a buyout. Before we get out of here, guys, this was awesome, by the way. I hope you guys enjoyed this grading of the Warriors this season. I feel like we did a great job breaking it down. We obviously all agree to most extents on all these grades, but obviously let us know wherever we post this, YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, whatever it is. Let us know. But before we get out of here, man, I wanna give a front office and coaching staff grade. Be real quick. Just your thoughts, because obviously that has been a part of why the Warriors are where they are at 500. So Matt, Chuck, what are your front office and Steve Kerr coaching staff kind of grades before we head out on here?
I'm gonna give Kerr a B. Probably. I don't think it's been his best season, but I don't think, again, sometimes coaching a lot of the time, and you'll hear, I think Hubie Brown has this cool quote about just whether you don't have the horses, you're not going to win a race, and this year the Warriors haven't had the horses a lot of the season. They've had wounded horses a lot of the season. And you can't hold the guy, I think, too much accountable to a lot of the struggles. I do think there are certain moments where, and certain really valid criticisms for maybe overplaying the two-way guys or not giving enough leash to some of the young guys and not being willing to trust a guy like Patrick Baldwin Jr. at all. I think there's some valid stuff to be not concerned about there, but to take issue with. But again, this is four-time coaching champion Steve Kerr. He's a 35-time champion overall. When push comes to shove, I do trust him to do the right thing. But I don't think it's been his best season. With regards to our guy, Bobby Myers, what about Bob? Yeah, I mean, let's be real. The team didn't come into the season with the roster that he needed to compete for a title in all reality. And that's, I think there are some pretty easy fingers to point at the big man upstairs, Joe Lacob, before Bob wants to do that, especially with in light of recent reporting around Bob not wanting to be a guy potentially who has to sever ties with a Clay or a Draymond or a Steve. You got to imagine that he had less of a hand in the youth movement than than Joe. So I'm giving Bob a B as well, especially for swinging and hitting DiVincenzo. That was a huge signing. Bringing back Gary Payton was also huge, and again, may not pay off this year the way we want to, but being willing to, that's a front office collaboration there. Being willing to get off Wiseman, I can't say enough, is not a thing a lot of organizations would have done. So early on, relatively speaking, in the number 2 overall pick experience. So it's solid B's for both. If you said B minus for Bob Myers, I wouldn't take issue with it, even if you said C, to be honest. But I'm going B for both.
Yeah,
I love that. I think with Kerr, like, a lot of that is, it's baked into what went on with the front office, and that's where I want to start. But I think you got to separate it out into 2 different parts. Like the off season, I think being generous, I'll give him a C. Dante was a home run. JaMychal Green, who could have seen that like his wrist was going to get messy and that he was going to have random infections and COVID and stuff. Like that's not stuff you can predict. But, whatever politics were going on there, they did not do enough to keep this roster in contending form in the offseason. And I think that's where the C comes in. Granted, it's just off one move, but absolute A+ for what he's done during the season to convince Joe Lacob to move off Wiseman, to avoid the whole sunk cost fallacy where you're trying to, hold on to this guy for as long as you can and see you can get something, or, he was willing to take the hit for trading the number 2 overall pick for just a capable rotation guy. And kudos to him for that, man. Like that can't be easy because you're gonna take the brunt of that. But he did that for the core of this team because Gary Payton was instrumental to their run last year. He will be instrumental in years going forward. All the core guys love him, and he can play right now. Obviously, I mean, not literally right now.
Yeah, month from now, but
like when he's available, he's ready to go. Like he's always going to be contributing on a night in, night out basis with that defense. So yeah, like I don't think Bob Myers got enough love for, being able to like take that one on the chin and go, hey, my bad. I did not do enough. Here's me doing enough for you guys. I'm using the assets we have. I'm not going to, muck up the works in the off season when I think they're going to be hunting for like a bigger fish there. And he was able to save Joey Lightyear's a little money in the process. So I think everyone's happy. And going into that with Kerr, I think he's probably on like the B+ A- borderline. I think that the lineup decisions have been a little iffy, and I wish he was a little more flexible in who he closes the games with. Like there have been some times where Clay's having an off night, Kuminga's playing really well. Clay closes, he misses shots, he hurts them defensively, and they lose because of it. And like, I understand you don't want to sort of like gum up what's going on with how dynamic that those 5 guys are when they're on the court together, the starting lineup. But like Clay's the kind of guy, he does not take that kind of stuff personally. Like he'd be the first person to say, I'm not having a good game. No one has to tell Clay that he's not playing well. Like he knows when he's having a rough game. So I would like to see a little bit more there, but he's done a lot with a little, like having these big absences from Steph and Wiggins, having not nearly enough bench players, having to go to like an 8-man rotation just to win games in February. Like that's tough. That's tough calls for a coach to make. And, he's had to navigate so much. Thankfully, he has experience with getting punched in the face by superstars. So he's definitely able to calm those waters a bit and bring everyone together. Like, so much that's been talked about of Steve Kerr in the past is that he's incredible at managing personalities. And I think we've really seen a masterclass of that this year. Like he's kept everything so under control. And I think a lesser coach who had more of an ego or more of an idea of what his role is in this would have maybe steered this team towards breaking up in the offseason. And the reason why it still looks like this core is going to stay together is because of Steve Kerr. I have no doubt about that, because the work this guy does behind the scenes is just unbelievable.
100%, man. I think you guys hit it. I'd give Kerr a B. And a lot of it, like you said, just with the roster that he's been given. The reason the grade falls for me is it does feel like the defense. I mean, not feel like the defense is obviously taking a step back with Mike Brown not being there. So you want to see, maybe it's not necessarily a Kerr thing, it's a coaching staff thing in general, but just that significant drop off. Like you said, felt like for the most part they had the players to do it, not necessarily maybe as the second or third or whatever they were last season, but the drop off feel is just kind of really bad. But outside of that, I'm with you, man. Just with all the bullshit that's been going on in the season, for the Warriors to still even have a very, very good chance to pull this off with no Steph, with no Wiggins for a large part. You got to give credit to Steve Kerr. I do think that the lineup changes, like you said, Chuck, I would like to see him be a little bit more flexible. Maybe give a guy like Patrick Baldwin some run. PBJ has been my guy. I think the dude still can be an absolute piece to this team, and it could be the missing one, if I'm being honest. But I want to separate the front office. I like how you did it with the offseason and this one. I think in the season, like you said, Chuck, making that move for Wiseman, massive. I'll give him a B plus for that, just because it felt like it was the right move to do. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, this is, you guys did something crazy. Like, it's the right move to do. I think bringing back Gary Payton was, getting a guy that can play in a month or whatever it is, a guy that fits. So to be able to have the humility to get off that. So shout out Joe Lacob, but they shot the bed in the offseason, man, to come off a championship and to be struggling this hard to get wins together, even just because your roster is so thin. Granted, they were betting on the young guys to figure it out or whatever it was. The team was just not ready to go in terms from a roster construction standpoint. So no, I think that definitely impacts what Kerr and the coaching staff can do. But that being said, going in the last last part of the year, 24 games or whatever's left, these dudes the team is there. I think they can compete with anyone in the West. They're set up there, just need to be healthy. But this was a fun episode, guys. Great grades, little mid-season report cards for everyone. Everyone let us know how we did. I think we nailed that in terms of the grades. All of Matt's fellow teachers out there, let us know how you guys would grade the Warriors. I think we knocked that one out of the park, guys. Before we get out of here, anything to shout out over All-Star break? Anything in the works, boys?
Yeah, I'm
Chuck,
cooking up a little, something with a Swiss Theory. Hopefully, sometime next week, maybe after that. Trying to have a more together dashboard for this whole Warriors team that people will be able to peruse, learn a little bit more about the roles, how everyone's performing within them, some stuff on the playbook as well. Yeah, keep an eye out for that at theswishtheory.com, and you can always check my stuff on Twitter at Claytheist11.
At Claytheist, check them out.
Love it. I got nothing coming up the next week or so. It's All-Star break, so I recap games, and when there's no games, I don't recap anything. So check out though GSW Fast Breaks Up, guys. A lot of really cool riders there. Keep checking out Chuck as well. The guy is, Zach Lowe is sweating bullets over there at ESPN, knowing that Charlie Cummings is waiting in the wings, man. So
I want everybody to know Chuck got he's got a Reddit sub tweet page or whatever. There's people out there just tagging his work. So if you are a big Reddit person, go tag Chuck. He's already getting some clout over there. So let's get that up.
Shout out to my guy Jocular Mango for shouting out the piece on there.
My dog Jocular. You know what you're doing, man. Hear from you, man. Obviously, have a great All-Star break. Everybody enjoy the festivities. We got the second part of the season coming up, guys. This is the stretch run. I think this team still has a chance to win a championship or defending champs. Nobody forget that. It's still right there. But until the next episode, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.